actually just remembered we're going to come into it without the music because I'm going to combine this with the Blake Corum section, and we'll put it up as the podcast tomorrow.
As a side note,
no
by the
music
way,
this time.
I put it out there that if Michigan wins the Big Ten title this year, that I will get some of the lyrics to Mr. Brightside tattooed somewhere on my body. That's how much I want it, man.
Yeah, wanting it is great. I don't know. Are you still safe? I think you're safe. I don't know enough yet to say one way or the other.
That's why I'm doing it now.
But that's ballsy. That is ballsy, no doubt about it.
Well, it would be one hell of a year. So what better way to celebrate, you know?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right, we are back here on a Wednesday. Apologize to everybody who was here on Monday when we had some technical difficulties. We had Blake Corum on with us. Thankfully, we got all the way through everything with him, about 30-plus minutes with him, and then we started to get into some other stuff. And I don't know what my computer was doing, but it just shut off. It just died. Like, for those of you who might have a MacBook or whoever ever used one before, when you get to 5% battery, your whole thing just – nerd alert. Your whole thing just – it just goes into like super power save mode. So everything is super slow. It doesn't work right. It gets real laggy. And it was doing that even though I had it plugged in. Then it died completely. I was able to finally get logged back in. The live stream was going for like 12 minutes with neither of us on there. So that's awesome. But really, really good stuff from Blake. His third appearance, like I said, on Monday, he's becoming somewhat of a regular. He keeps killing it. And after doing a little bit of research about Northern Illinois, he might have his best game yet on Saturday. So we'll talk a little bit about that with an expert on the Northern Illinois Huskies here in just a little bit. We're going to be joined by a gentleman that writes for, let me double check here the newspaper so I get the name right. Eddie Carifio is his name, and he writes. He's the sports editor for the Daily Chronicle in DeKalb. So should be good, man. He should have a lot of good stuff. We put up a Know the Enemy piece earlier today, so you can check that out at WolverineDigest.com. It's got 3 players to watch. It's got a strength and a weakness for the Huskies, and also a prediction from a student writer there at the Northern Illinois newspaper, school newspaper. So pretty good stuff over at WolverineDigest.com. We'll have more good stuff on this live stream from another expert and break down exactly what to expect from the Huskies. So where we left off, though, Chris, we had one more prediction question that we didn't get to. We covered my A.J. Henning scoring a touchdown. Let me see. I'm looking for my sound effects.
You know where it is.
Blake Corum starting the game. Cornelius Johnson catching 5 balls. Daxton Hill getting a pick. Yeah, I went 1 for 5. Not a great outing for me. I did get the last one right, which was that Michigan would cover the 6.5. They not only covered it, they freaking tripled it. Yeah. Michigan typically not awesome against the spread, but dude, 6.5. Everybody was kind of viewing it as maybe a still a close game, even though Washington looked like crap against Montana. Michigan took them apart. So, last question. The way we were doing it before was, whether I got it right or got it wrong. You kind of gave your thoughts on my thoughts. So I thought Michigan would cover pretty easily. They obviously did. I wonder, if you could kind of rewind back to where you were sitting on Friday, how you were feeling about that.
Well, going back and looking at, even with the performance against Montana State, right?
Montana, just straight up Montana. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So even with the performance against Montana, I still thought that Washington was going to come in and put up a fight. The loss was so improbable, and I said it multiple times that I figured Washington would regroup. They'd come to Ann Arbor angry. We'd see a fist fight, but ultimately I thought, the crowd, the maze out, Michigan they would find a way to pull it out. And man, it was never close. Like, it was never even a game. And I think it was worse than what the score indicates. It was just a complete dominant performance, and I was shocked. So I can't remember if I thought that they would cover. I did think it would be a close game.
Blue, these guys get off the live stream. Blue by 90, get out of here with your Mr. Brightside slap.
See, I sang it with them. Did you hear that?
What exactly does it slap? What does it slap? Puppies? Babies?
It's not a slapper. It's not a slapper.
Good Lord. I mean, I guess If you just got cheated on by your girlfriend and you're crying in your parents' basement, it slaps.
You know what? You know what, though? I will say on Saturday, we knew it was coming and they brought it. And it was, I mean,
Listen.
Here's the thing. Everything about Saturday, top to bottom, what happened in that stadium for me was a beautiful sight. Mr. Brightside was a part of that. They had some other things that were going. So I think I've softened my edge on it just a little bit.
So for me, and I don't want to, God, are we really doing this again? It's not about the fact that
it's a blue by 90, guys. It's not us. It's them.
Right, or it's not for the players. It's for the fan. Like it's the song specifically for me. The lyrics, what it's about. I love that the students are into something. Yeah. I just wish it was a doper song. That's all. That's all I wish.
That's okay. Yeah.
I don't like the dude's voice. Like I said, when you're whining and crying, being a pop punk princess about getting cheated on by your girlfriend, I'm not with that. That's
what.
That's
Mr. Brightside.
Listen, these blue by 90 guys, they understand this. That's SDE is what that is. That's SDE all day, and you're never going to convince me otherwise. There you go.
I'll say this. Mr. Brightside slaps about as hard as Lady in Red, and I think I suggested that maybe we should start playing that in the stadium, so you're going to have to get out of here with that. I've accepted it, but it don't slap. It's not.
It's funny, too, how angry people got on Twitter. People were, like, trashing my work, my family, me. I'm like, bro, I just don't like the song. Can we just relax a little bit? There's a lot of music out there. Some I like, some I don't. That's one I don't. It's not that deep. It's not that deep. I wasn't about to leave the stadium because it's being played. I wasn't about to change my fandom or get a new career or anything like that. It's just...
Maybe you should.
Like, if I'm driving in the car, there's a bunch of music I would play. That's not one for me.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't do it. Anyway,
see what you did,
Lord. Who is that? Justin? Who is? It's got to be Justin, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. He says, "I'm sorry for putting you off the rails already." All right, back on the rails. Let's get on the rails. Chris, you know what time it is?
I do know what time it is.
Burning questions.
I need that because it's a little bit chilly. It's a little chilly down here on this
in the basement.
Fallish day. Yeah.
I'm gonna go first this week.
I'm
going to go first this week. You know what was so cool? I wish I could remember who it was, but when we had our technical difficulties on Monday and we had to leave early and it was getting late, we just said, we'll just combine it with Wednesday. We'll come back. Not a big deal. Somebody actually was like, no, I want burning questions. That made me that warmed the cockles. That warmed the cockles of the heart right there. That somebody
alert.
That somebody wanted this segment and needed it in their life.
You gotta have it.
All right, here we go. First question, Chris. Flat out, does Jim Harbaugh have confidence in Cade McNamara?
Oh, I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know. I don't think it's clear one way or another. We heard a lot of stuff about Cade McNamara during the offseason and making everybody around him better and being a true leader and, all the things you would want in a quarterback. But here's the thing. And I know people there was a big argument about whether or not Michigan passed the ball enough in the first 2 weeks. I get why they would run the ball as much as they did, but to throw the ball, to have that few attempts to where you're like in the bottom of, college football, Division I college football, you just can't be there if you're the University of Michigan. I just put out an article about this. I think they got to spend the next 2 weeks moving the ball and seeing what they have with Cade. But as of now, I don't know how to answer that question because he hasn't had to do anything.
Yeah, I worded it the way I worded it on purpose. I wanted it to be like a thinker. I mean, it's not about like, has he been really good or have you been impressed with him? Those are easy to answer. I mean, like, I don't know how you could be impressed with what he's done because he hasn't really done anything. So, I worded it that way on purpose. I think it is a tough question because we heard how Jim Harbaugh talked about him. We heard about how all the other players have talked about him. Blake Corum on with us Monday said, "Don't worry, we can throw that thing." I get it. I hear what everybody's saying. The proof's in the pudding, and it has not been there, period.
Yeah.
And, Jim Harbaugh said that he was, what word did he use? Solid performance, I think he said.
Yeah.
Okay, even if you're one of the avid defenders of the approach because Michigan was running the ball so well, which they obviously were, he was still 7 of 15. That's less than 50% for 44 yards. And 33 of those yards came on one completion. So
I was going to say 6 of 14 for 11 yards.
He was 6 of 14 for 11 yards. I don't. That doesn't create any confidence in me. I'm not the
Right.
coach. I'm not there. I'm not seeing it day in and day out. But that stat line, I don't care if they ran for 1,000 yards. That stat line is awful.
Well, and I think we said it before. Michigan's not going to go, or at least I don't think Michigan's going to go into Madison and run the ball 50, 60 times and average 8+ yards a carry. And so if they're not going to be able to do that in Madison, they've got to find out what they have in the passing game now. So right now, yeah, that's a hard question because I don't know if Jim does. We haven't seen any evidence of that through the first 2 weeks.
There you go. What you got for me, Chris?
All right, Brandon. Is it too early to call Mike Macdonald an upgrade over Don Brown?
That is a good question. That is a burning question. Barely. I think barely. I'm very, very encouraged by what I'm seeing. I still think they were just way better than Western, and it turns out they were way better than Washington too. What Washington was doing on defense was some of the easiest, on offense was some of the easiest stuff to defend I've ever seen. I mean, there was no imagination. It was straight handoffs up the middle. They weren't even doing the stuff that Michigan was doing with all the runs, with the double pulls and the counters and, getting guys out in space, getting on the edge with a lead blocker. Like, they weren't doing any of that stuff. It was ugly offensive football from Washington. So, but I talked about it after week one, the safety blitzes, the using Daxton Hill and Brad Hawkins and RJ Moten in a lot of unique, interesting ways, trying things that weren't working, going away from it, coming back to it later. Like, that's all really encouraging stuff that we just didn't see out of Don Brown. I'm not quite ready to say that just yet, but I think he's been plenty good for who they've played. I'll put it that way.
And that's what I was going to follow it up with is that, from my standpoint and from every Michigan fan standpoint, we've seen this movie before, even when Don Brown was here, that, the Michigan defense looks phenomenal for, 7 or 8 weeks of the year. It's when they really get up against, those upper tier, top level opponents that the wheels come off. But like you said, we've seen, the willingness to make adjustments, kind of to switch some things up and put guys in a better position to succeed. And so I'm encouraged by it, but yeah, I think it's too early. We probably won't find out until, Wisconsin's only 17 days away.
I know.
It's crazy. And that's probably when we'll find out. So.
Yeah, I think Rutgers will test them a little bit, but that's still another team that just doesn't have as much talent as Michigan. They're better under Greg Schiano, but they're not ready to challenge just yet, I don't think. So I agree with you. All right, I want a number breakdown here. Okay. You'll understand when I ask the question. What should the breakdown be between Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins in carries?
I mean, I'm totally fine if it's 25. I mean, but it depends on the opponent. If you get into a situation where, you're only going to be carrying the ball 25, maybe 30 times, I want the lion's share of that to go to Blake Corum. So if you're carrying the ball 20 times, I want, Corum to get, or 30 times, I want Corum to get 20 of those carries or somewhere near that.
Let me ask it. I thought maybe my question didn't come through as clearly. Do it like on 100, like 100 scale, like 60.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. What are you thinking there?
So I'm giving Blake 60. I'm giving Hassan 40 when it's a tight game, and then when things slow up, I maybe take 5% out of Hassan's 40 and give that to Donovan Edwards or somebody else. But to me, it's 60-40.
I think it might even be a little more than that for me. I've just been so impressed with Blake Corum, the speed, the vision. I know Hassan is considered the thunder in the package, but Blake he's a ball of muscle, dude. He goes forward, he runs people over, he's fearless. He seems to have a nose for the end zone. He can catch it. He's a fantastic running back. And so and I don't even dislike Hassan Haskins. I just love Blake Corum's game that much. That one play against Washington where that safety came up like he was going to stop him once he got to the third level, and Blake just erased the angle, and that safety was like, whoa, I didn't know he had that. That safety was like, I look like a dick on film right there. Everybody's going to dog me out for that because I just look like a clown.
Yeah.
He's special, man. I think I'd go like 65-35, and then kind of like what you said, mix Donovan in when you can. Yeah. It might not even be part of that big picture. It's more like, okay, if they're up, you're up 30, get those other two guys out and just let Donovan go.
Yeah.
But I'm leaning on Blake. Man.
Here's the one thing I'll say. I know that Blake Corum, and even you and I have been in lockstep with this. Blake Corum has gotten the bulk of the attention for how successful the rushing game has gone. And rightfully, I mean, he's had a lot of explosive runs, but Hassan Haskins is also doing his thing out there. He's also putting up yards. And I do think that part of Blake Corum's success is the fact that you can bring in another back like Hassan Haskins, who's a hammer, beating up that defensive line, who can go out and get you another 100 yards. You can keep Blake rested. He's not going to get winded out there, and then he can come in fresh and hit some of those explosive plays. So I think that Corum's success is dependent on Haskins and vice versa. I'm good with the 60-40, but yeah, everything we've heard about Blake Corum is seems to be legit.
It's actually been pretty close to 50-50, I think. Yeah. Like first game, it was, I think, 14-15 or 14
almost like it's by design, yeah.
And then the second game, it was pretty similar to that, I think. Wasn't it 21 and 22 or 21 and 19? Yeah, something. Really close. So it's obvious that they're and it's obvious because it's does this make sense? It's obvious because it's obvious. They're both freaking good, so give them both the ball. But I love what Blake Corum's doing, man. I love what he's doing.
Hard not to love it. All right, my second question for you, man. We saw what happened over the weekend with Ohio State and Oregon, and I'm curious, do you think this is a situation where Ohio State stumbles early, but they eventually settle in and they become, the Ohio State we all expect later on in the year, or are there some legitimate concerns based on what you've seen so far?
Can I say both? I actually think it's both.
Sure.
I think they have legitimate concerns. Their defense is porous. CJ Stroud is not Justin Fields, but I do think they're still just insanely talented. And you start to figure some things out and things settle down a little bit, they're going to be the best team in the Big Ten. Losing to Oregon, there's no shame in losing to a team like Oregon. I mean, it was at home. That was a little surprising. Pretty surprising when you looked at the number. Ohio State was favored by 14.5, but I think it's a combination of both. I think they've got some weaknesses. They're not invincible, but I do think they're still really, really talented. And as you move through the season, some things are going to settle down, and they're still going to be the class of the conference. And all roads are going to go through Columbus to win the Big Ten title. But when is that? Can somebody knock them off? Can a couple teams get them? Michigan doesn't play them till the end. So whatever's going to happen and develop for them is going to happen and develop before Michigan ever plays against them. So it's going to be interesting to watch. But I think it's, you've mentioned this a couple times. They look human, or they look moral, or they look, whatever it is, whatever word you want to use. But, what Oregon was doing wasn't wasn't rocket science. They had some creative play calling, but they ran the ball. They were able to run the ball. They were able to get some quarterback, option type of plays where he could run it or throw it, and that was working. So I kind of cheated on the question, but I think it's both. I think they have some weaknesses, but I still think they're going to be really good, come late November.
Yeah, it's hard because Ohio State is one of those – you'd never want to – talk about Ohio State as if they're an underdog or they're a team in trouble. But I said it last week. I think I've said it multiple times now that there's just something about them that looks a little more human this year than they've looked in years past. And then there was more of that on Saturday against Oregon. And, based on what we're seeing in the Big Ten, I think that there is a legitimate chance for somebody to claim, other than Ohio State, to claim the Big Ten East. I still think the Buckeyes are the best team in the Big Ten Conference, but there's certainly that door to take the Big Ten East division it's cracked open a little bit, more so than it has been.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you have been saying that, and it's impressive for any team. I know Oregon's pretty good, and they obviously, looked better than most thought. But going into Columbus and beating that team with all those stars, I mean, it's
2017 hasn't happened since 2017.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do. There's no doubt about that. I'm trying to send an email to the guy that's coming on with us, and it's not cooperating here for me.
You?
Yeah. Anyways, next question for me, and this is kind of going back to something that you asked. Maybe I should have switched the order of the question here, but that's okay. Go ahead and give Mike Macdonald's defense a letter grade through 2 games. Give him his report card.
Solid B+.
Okay.
I mean, it's looked good. It's looked solid. I haven't really seen glaring issues. They're not forcing as many turnovers, I guess, as you would have wanted to see through the first 2 weeks. But outside of that, I don't really have anything to complain about. Like we just talked about, I go back to the fact that we haven't really seen how the defense performs against some of the top tier teams. But so far through 2 weeks, I think it's been a solid job. Give them a B plus.
That's the same grade I was thinking.
I'm an easy grader.
Maybe, but I think it'd be a hard argument to make to give him anything lower than that. What bad?
Yeah.
I think the worst thing you could say so far is it just hasn't been tested, and that's not on him. Right. I mean, like Western Michigan wasn't that great, but they took away what we thought might work for them, the deep ball and Caleb Ellaby, doing the RPO stuff and some quick hitter type stuff. So I think they did a really good job there. And then Washington. Again, they're a lot worse than I thought, but still, they weren't able to get anything going. Michigan pretty much kept them out of the end zone. So yeah, I think I'd give him a B plus when he gets tested a little bit more, even against Rutgers, but obviously against Wisconsin, that's going to be the measuring stick at this point. I know we said before the season that Washington was a big measuring stick, and it just turned out to be a smaller stick. I mean,
we're moving the goalposts now.
It feels like that, but I mean, when you saw them come out and lose against Montana. And then you saw them in the big house really not be able to do anything on either side of the ball. It's like, well, all right, they're not really what I thought they were going to be. And you take the win however you can get it. You move to 2-0. You can only play who's on your schedule. So it is what it is. But I'm with you. I think I give them about the same thing, about a B plus. It's been pretty damn good so far.
Solid start. So this was a hot topic. It's been a hot topic over the last couple days. We saw what happened out in USC. Head coach Clay Helton fired. All kinds of noise now about Damani Jackson, Will Johnson, and Damani coming to Michigan. And so I'm curious, flat out, does the firing of Clay Helton ultimately bring Damani to Ann Arbor?
I'm still going to say no. Okay. I think there is a much, much better chance of it now. But he's still a California kid. He's still right out there. He's still, I'm sure, still watching what's going on with Michigan. They're 2-0. They've looked good, but as we all know and have said so far, let's wait a little bit. Let's wait a little bit and see what's really going on. But there is a but here. You could not have drawn up a better visit weekend. With the atmosphere of the night game, the big win over a Pac-12 school that he's familiar with out there. People he knows, I'm sure, are on that team or have watched that team. I'm sure they recruited him pretty hard. I don't know exactly the backstory about Washington's efforts with him, but yeah, no, I still think he's a USC lean, and I think what happens with Dante Williams is the biggest domino to come next. He is the cornerbacks coach. He's now been named the interim head coach. That's Damani's guy. That's Will Johnson's guy. That's the reason why Will Johnson took the official visit out to USC is because of that coach. And I think what happens with him is probably even a bigger deal than what happened with Clay Helton. So I'll wait a little bit. I'm not ready to pull that trigger yet, but if there's a sliding scale, it's certainly moved towards Michigan after this past weekend. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, the timeline of events is you can't ignore how interesting it is, right? He comes to Ann Arbor, they're doing a photo shoot with Will Johnson in the sweet alternate uniform setup. Go to the game. It's an incredible environment. Michigan goes out, just hammers the ball. Defensively, they look solid. Damani goes back to California and the guy he's going to play for gets fired. And so everything just kind of swung for me in Michigan's favor. I think you're right. It's only week 2, so we'll see what happens for the rest of the season. But I do think if Michigan puts together a solid showing this year, I would expect to see Damani make the flip.
It's possible.
I mean, he's either very, very, very interested in Michigan, or he's just doing a hell of a job in trolling.
Yeah, no, he's interested. He's interested. His dad's very interested.
I mean, very, very interested.
Yeah, he's super tight with Will Johnson. As we said, there were pictures floating around of him, palling around with JJ. And I mean, it's real. It's very real. But right now, I'm still saying USC by a little bit, not by a lot. but by a little bit. All right, I got one pretty specific, but is this the week? Because I actually thought we might see it last week. Is this the week that we see AJ Henning at punt returner?
I sure hope so. Because that is
Yeah.
brutal to watch back there. And, you think about all of the athletes that they've recruited for this football program, and I'm just blown away that one of those guys out of that group isn't ready to go and take that position over in the absence of Ronnie Bell. So, yeah, I know that Harbaugh said during the press conference that he said AJ Henning was close. Again, just like a whole host of other things that are kind of concerning about, the Michigan team this year. At punt return, it seems like this is a good, if you're going to put somebody out there like AJ Henning, put him out there against NIU. Don't wait until Madison. Like, you've got 2 weeks where you can sort of get the kinks out here. And to answer your question, I hope so.
I think so too. I think we will. I think we'll see him. I think Jim Harbaugh's comments that he's now said twice about Caden Kolesar, how valuable he is and how good he is at the other spots. And then you couple in that he wasn't great back there against Washington. He let a punt hit the ground that shouldn't have hit the ground, and he also muffed a punt. I mean, that's, if that's the guy you've got back there, then he didn't kill it. So I think if he's so much better at those other spots, he didn't kill it at the other spot, and somebody would be a more dangerous weapon back there.
Yeah.
Then just connect all the dots and do the obvious thing. Put Caden Kolesar back on punt block and put AJ Henning back there, who's someone who can take one back to the house.
Right. See, that's the problem. Is not only was he not fielding the ball well, but he also isn't a threat to take it deep. And so, at that position, you're for that play, you're sort of dead in the water with the way it is. So yeah, I would say, Roman Wilson, AJ Henning, Mike Sainer, still whoever, get somebody out there that can electrify and take one to the house.
Yep, I agree.
My turn already?
It is.
All right, Brandon. You predicted
back to you, Chris.
At the beginning of the year, you predicted 7-5 for the Wolverines. We're 2 weeks in, they're 2-0. They look pretty good. But I'm curious, at this point, is Michigan a legitimate threat to win the Big Ten East?
I still don't think so. I mean, they still have to go on the road at Penn State, at Wisconsin, stuff to play Ohio State. Michigan State is a hell of a lot better than I thought they were going to be. I have them at 8-4 now because that Washington game was one of the losses I had for them. I mean, after I saw Washington lose to Montana and watched a little bit of their film and broke down some of the stuff they were doing, I mean, my prediction last week was 31-21 Michigan. So I shifted my preseason thoughts after seeing them both play a game. But I still don't know enough about what this team really is top to bottom when they start playing against some better teams. I think they're going to be 4-0 heading to Madison, though. I think that. And, maybe that's
top 20 by that point.
They're going to get all the way to top 15, top 20 by that point, and then then we'll really see what's up. You mentioned in your article,
you better get that slurp button ready. I told you I was going to be slurping a lot after week 2. I don't think I'm slurping as much as I thought I would, but I'm drinking.
Well, you mentioned in that article, man, they haven't won in Madison since 2001. 20 years, bro. That's
20 years.
It's a long
some of the players
time.
on the roster weren't even born.
Not alive.
When it happened.
Not alive.
That's insane.
So that'll again. I mean, shift the goalpost a little bit. Grab a different measuring stick. Okay, but it is what it is. Washington's not that good. They're 2-0. They're going to be 4-0 probably, and then you got the big one at Camp Randall.
Here's what I say about that. No, I don't view Michigan as a legitimate threat to win the Big Ten East yet because there's a big component of their game that I haven't seen, which is the passing game. I know that they're going to need that element at some point in the year when they get to the Penn States, the Michigan States, the Ohio State. They're going to need to utilize Mcnamara's arm, and he's going to need to make the right reads, make the right decisions. He's going to have to move the ball down the field. And, oh, by the way, he's going to have to know who to get the ball to. When you're drawing up the play, and you got to have – Brandon, let me ask you a question. Side note. Right now, who's Michigan's go-to receiver?
They don't have one.
They don't have one, right? And they might think they know who it is, but it hasn't happened on the field because if it had, we would know who that person is. So, again, the next 2 weeks, man, they have got to focus on the passing game. I know that the rushing game was successful, but they are until they show that they can do both, they're not a legitimate threat to win the Big Ten East.
I think my question is in the same vein. All right, I went from very, very specific to is AJ Henning going to return a punt this week to extremely vague and broad, big picture. This is I have it written down this way, so I'm just going to ask it.
Let's hear
Is
it.
Michigan good? Are they good at football?
They're good at football. They got a lot of really good football players, and I think you'll see. We don't know what's going to happen with this team, but I can tell you through the first 2 weeks, it's been an absolute joy to watch them. And it's not just because they've been, kicking ass on the field, but it's the way they interact with each other. It's the energy and the aggressive. I mean, watch Aiden Hutchinson go make a tackle, or watch him get to the quarterback, and how just violent those collisions are. Like, these guys, this is a damn good football team. And
Speaking of that, remember when he freaking ragdolled the quarterback?
Yeah, like he was a child.
Like he was a child. Yeah,
awesome. I remember looking at you and I said he treated him just like a kid. And so I don't know, man. Yeah, they're pretty damn good, but again, there's still some things we need to see.
For sure. Last one, take us home.
All right, are you ready for it?
Ready.
The rushing game has obviously been out of this world. Can't really ask for more than what the running backs have done to this point. My question to you is, how much credit does Mike Hart deserve for the early success of the running backs?
That is a good question. I mean, I think he deserves quite a bit. I like how he's using the running backs. We knew that it was going to be kind of a two-headed monster with both Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins, but I love the fact that he's leaving the hot hand in. I mean, we saw it. Probably a little more obvious in the first game than I just feel like they just kind of traded back and forth, and they ran it so much in the second game against Washington that they needed to come out. You can't carry when they come out at halftime and you run the ball 8 times in a row, you're not going to use one guy to do that. It's going to have to be, rotate some guys in there, keep them fresh, make sure they're able to give their all. But there were some stretches against Western where it's like, God, I hope it's Corum again, and it was like. Some of the things that seem really obvious about using a running back that didn't happen in the last couple of years have happened so far. So I think how you worded that makes me answer it a little different. I mean, like, at the end of the day, the running backs don't have anywhere to go if the line's not doing their job. I think you give us just as much props to Sharon Moore as you do to Mike Hart. But I love the way, and the linemen themselves, obviously, and the tight ends. Jim Harbaugh has been really complimentary of a guy like Joe Honick for the kind of the jumbo tight end at this point after transitioning from tackle. Eric All's not the biggest guy, but he's kind of nasty as a blocker. He will really put his face on somebody. He's given a lot of praise to those guys. So speaking of
Eric All, he is tied with Cornelius Johnson as the 2 leading receivers for Michigan with 3 receptions each.
Monstrous 3 grabs through 2 games. Yeah, so to answer your question, I think he deserves quite a bit of the credit. I think it's an attitude thing, it's an approach thing, it's a detail thing, and it's a usage thing. He's making the right decisions. He's using his talented players the right way, and it's working. But running backs they'll tell you. I mean, they're the stars. They're the ones who get all the shine and get to walk into the end zone carrying the ball. But it's those big fellas up front, man. Every running back ever will say that. So I think you got to heap a ton of credit on those guys and Sharon Moore as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but I feel like when I watch Blake Corum and Hassan Haskins and Donovan Edwards run, to me, it just looks like the Michigan running backs are running harder than I've seen them in years past. Like, it's more violent, it's angrier. And I do think that there's something to be said about the makeup of Mike Hart, who he is mentally, what his background is, all of the things he's accomplished. And to me, I think outside of just utilizing them and making sure that you're putting them in a position to succeed, I think just by who he is, his influence on that group is going a whole hell of a lot towards the success that they've had this season.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. And I think you can give the same exact kind of credit you just gave Mike Hart for his mental makeup, his DNA, his approach. It's just in those dudes too. Like, we talked to Blake Corum about the working hard and the grind and the thing that he's all about that. Hassan Haskins, we've heard about it the same way. And I know for a fact that Donovan Edwards is that way. I covered him in high school, and I've heard, every coach and every person that's known that kid since he was in 3rd grade that just talks about how competitive he is and how bad he wants to be great and how important it is for him to work hard and do the right thing. So, I mean, that's part of, finding guys that fit what you do in the recruiting process and, vetting everything and asking about, all right, like, we see him on Friday nights. What's he like on Monday through Thursday, and what was he like in 10th grade versus now? All that stuff factors in, and I think they've got 3 really driven, humble, team first kind of guys that happen to be pretty damn good at playing the position, and it's working. I mean, it's working at the absolute highest level. So, yeah, I think you can give plenty of credit to Mike Hart, and I think it's due. I mean, we talked about it before the season started, how excited we were for that hire, and I think it's playing out that way.
He seems like the kind of guy you want to play hard for. I mean, just by being around him, his presence, he kind of gives that impression.
No doubt about it. We will put
or he'd be up in your ass otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We will put a cap on burning questions right there. I think that was good, man. Wow. I like that segment a lot. I really do. I can see why people, I got people standing out in my yard.
Listen to them.
They're going crazy, dude. I got people standing out my front yard asking, "Where's burning questions?"
Got them out the window right now.
Yeah, no, that was good. I'm glad we came back to that. Bummer that it didn't work out on Monday, but we'll make it work. We'll make it fit in right here, and no problem. Yeah. As I said earlier, we are going to be joined in just a little bit by Eddie Carifio, sports editor at I forgot the name of the newspaper again. I'm gonna have to pull that up so that way I don't mess it up when he's on here. The Daily Chronicle. I was gonna say the Daily Gazette. I didn't think that was right, but based in DeKalb, Illinois. So expert on Northern Illinois on the Northern Illinois Huskies, and we'll get his take on what exactly Michigan's going to see. Side note: my sister went to NIU for like a year and a half.
Oh, okay.
Then she transferred, but yeah. Anyway, so I've been there. I've actually been to DeKalb. Hung out with her when she was in school. I think I was maybe a senior at the time, 3 years older than her. But anyway, We'll hear about what DeKalb and what NIU and what the Huskies and what Rocky Lombardi are all about. In just a little bit when he gets on there. I don't know. What is he all about?
I don't know why, but hearing Rocky Lombardi made me laugh. I don't know why. I don't know why he torched us last year.
He's kind of funny looking.
Looked like a Heisman hopeful.
Kind of funny looking. All right, we got a couple random topics here that I threw down just so we could talk until we are joined by our guest. This made a little bit more sense on Monday to get into these things, but we'll still go through them right now. So on Monday, Michigan jumped into the AP poll. They're number 25. Justified? Not justified? Are they better than? Are there 24 teams in the country better than Michigan right now? I guess that's an interesting way to discuss it.
No, I don't think so. Even with the questions I have with the passing attack, I've seen enough from the defense and the rushing game to know that, I think I said it before, if the passing game is anywhere within the vicinity of what they're doing from a rushing standpoint, this team's going to be one of the top 15, maybe even one of the top 10 teams by the time you get into November. So I certainly think they're one of the best 25 teams out there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way polls work, I was like, that's about where I would have had them. They were on the outside looking in, but got a couple votes the week before after manhandling Western. A couple teams ahead of them lost. You slide them up a little bit. I mean, it doesn't really matter until the playoff rankings start in week 7 or 8, whenever that is. But it's fun. I mean, it's a talking point. That's how you kind of put some value on where teams are and what they've done so far and the wins and the losses that they do have. But it's like anything. You put anything out there, like I put the story out just like Michigan ranked number 25. People are like, who cares? Who cares? They're like, all right, dude, right. Just relax. Can you just talk about it? Can we talk about it a little bit? It's one of those
feisty
things.
bunch.
I mean, what are you doing to beat Ohio today? What have they been doing for the last you can't say anything without someone having an aneurysm or blowing an O-ring over.
Winning cures all. They just got to win. They just got to win.
Yeah, keep winning, keep stacking them up. We'll find things to talk about, but I think it's justified. I don't know how you can say like how impressive they were in both of the wins against a MAC school and a Washington team that's nowhere near as good as people thought they were going to be heading into the year. But, dude, the way they've been running the ball, and neither one of them were a game, really. I mean, by the end of it, it was 10-0 at halftime last week. But when you win it the way you do and you go out and you run the ball like that and you can literally just, hey, Washington, we're running through the B gap, and then they just freaking do it for 9 yards, that's impressive.
Let me ask you yes or no. Is Michigan better than Miami?
I think that one's pretty close, but I would say I think Michigan would have trouble with Miami. I do. I
B-
think De'Aaron King would be a lot to handle, but it's close.
BYU,
Yes.
BYU, North Carolina,
Yes.
Arkansas.
They're better than I thought, but I'd still say yes. I would.
Arizona State,
Yes.
Ole Miss, Coastal Carolina, Iowa State. So I'm going down these are all teams ahead
of Michigan right now.
Yeah, and I'm looking. I'm just going through the list, and I'm taking Michigan in more than half.
I think Michigan would have its hands full with Ole Miss and Matt Corral, but that's just.
You think so?
Dude, that mother scratcher throws it around the yard, dude.
What a matchup that would be.
That would be fun to watch.
Right.
That would be fun to watch. Hey, there's our guest. Let's bring him in right now. He can hear me. I see him smiling. It means he knows he's here. Eddie Carifio. Did I get the name right?
Yes, you did.
All right. I DM'd him. I said, hey, can you give me a phonetic spelling of that bad boy? I don't want to butcher it when I bring you on. But Eddie is the sports editor at the Daily Chronicle. They're in DeKalb. How's DeKalb, Illinois right now, man? How's it feeling over there?
It's nice, actually. It's been hot as anything the last of us cooled off, so it's nice.
All right. Well, let's jump right into our little preview here. Northern Illinois, rough season last year. And then they came out and surprised some folks, I think, this year in week 1. And then last week, a shootout, an absolute, barn burner comeback shootout. What is Northern Illinois? Do people really know right now? What's the vibe around that team, and how good or how bad are they at this point?
I mean, I think the vibe pretty much is they're going to play, even if they're down 26 points, in the third quarter, they're going to, have the ability to be leading in the fourth. You saw the late comeback against Georgia Tech. You saw what happened against, obviously, Wyoming last week. And this is a, young team. And they were sung in last year. And, they're still really young this year. And there's going to be a lot of growing pains. And Saturday may actually be one of those. But it's a team that was probably better than 0-6 last year. If it had been a 12-game schedule, there probably would have that. I don't think that would have extrapolated out to 0-12. You throw a FCS team in there, throw a couple of the bottom MAC teams in there, and it's not a bowl season, but it's 3-9, 4-8, whatever. So this team, I think, is ready to prove that 0-6 doesn't mean that they're awful.
We're losing you a little bit here and there, Eddie. I don't know if you're noticing that or not, but try to jump back in.
I am.
It's all good. We'll get through it if we can get through it. If it starts to get real laggy or real choppy, we'll shift gears a little bit. But I think one of the interesting things here, that's interesting, and that Michigan fans are just, I don't really know. I just said his name a minute ago, and Chris started laughing. Rocky Lombardi is quarterback in NIU, and he obviously was a legend for a little while in East Lansing last year as Michigan State's quarterback, and led the Spartans to a win over Michigan when they had no business winning that game. But how's he done through 2 weeks, and what should Michigan fans expect to see from a guy that they probably don't like a whole lot?
Yeah, and so you're frozen. I have a feeling you're probably ditching me here soon, and I apologize for the connection, but I'll just keep plowing through. Rocky Lombardi led the comeback in the Georgia Tech game. That was the last drive when they needed the touchdown. He was on fire on that drive, fired off the touchdown, fired off the 2-point conversion. Looked really good. Against Wyoming, not so much. Threw 3 interceptions. 2 of them were picked at the line, or tipped at the line and ended up getting picked, but still wasn't the best game from him. They haven't really relied on it. They've been using that running game. Harrison Whaley, freshman, second-year true freshman, COVID freshman, whatever you want to call him, is taking a brunt of the carries this year. Has set a career high. Each of the first 2 games has been the MAC West player of the week, the first 2 weeks. So they haven't really needed to use Lombardi much. I'm guessing that's probably going to change as they fall behind or whatever on Saturday. But yeah, I'm sure Michigan fans weren't upset at the 3 interceptions if they were paying attention to NIU at all last week.
Yeah. I happened to see one of them. I think he threw it right into the chest of a defensive end who took it back for a touchdown. Really a good play by that DN. And if the other two were tipped, then it still shows up in the stat sheet as a pick, but maybe not the worst throws in the world from him. But Michigan fans are going to have a lot of fun booing him, I'm sure. I'm sure after last year. You mentioned Whaley, the running back, number 30. Kid's got some wheels. I mean, he had some runs against Wyoming where you're like, dude, that guy can go. He can run. He's fast. He's got some elusiveness. You just wonder what that's going to look like against a Michigan team that's going to be bigger, stronger, faster than anybody he saw last week, and probably anybody he saw against Georgia Tech as well. I mean, what's a realistic expectation for a back like him against Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, Wyoming's run defense is, I think, theoretically better than Georgia Tech's, or at least by the end of the year may prove out to be that way. Because obviously Wyoming does that run defense is a strength of theirs. But it's, going into the big house as a freshman, inexperienced, going against that team that is not allowed any much on the ground at all this year. I mean, you would think 150 to 175 yards, probably not going to happen this week. I mean, if you're taking the under on yardage, I'd go under 175, go out on that limb there. But, he still has been able, when you don't think he's going to get anything, he's still, for a speedster, for a track guy, you saw him getting a lot of yards after contact, which with the way their line is played has probably been a good thing. Yards after contact, which you wouldn't expect. He's made stuff happen when the holes are there. He is hitting them. That 75-yard run, I think you brought up against Wyoming, that kind of sparked the comeback there. He had 2 touchdown runs, both of at least 25 yards, I think, in a 13-second span, thanks to a turnover that really got things rolling. It may not be the 150-yard games, but if they, run them 30 times for 100, 120 yards, they probably got to be feeling good about that, if that's even possible.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's had a ton of success in the first 2 weeks, as you said. I mean, if he does it against Michigan, I think most people would be surprised. But he's talented. He's got some skills. He's very fast, and I mean, if you let him get through that first and second level, he could be a problem. So I think he's somebody to definitely keep an eye on. I think the biggest point of conversation I want to have here with you, and then I'll ask for a prediction, and we'll let you get on out of here. Michigan has been running the ball at will, and Northern Illinois' rush defense is not good. I just feel like Michigan's already going to be more talented than NIU. I mean, that's the difference between a Big Ten school and a MAC school, but it's like strength, super strength versus, pretty bad weakness here. I just feel like this is going to be as good as Michigan has ran the ball the first 2 weeks. It might be even better on Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, the NIU defense is definitely been this team's Achilles heel right now. I mean, you like to say it's specifically the run defense, but the pass defense hasn't looked that bad. Or hasn't looked that good either. Hammock talks about complementary football, everyone playing well at the same time. They have not really had that through the first 2 weeks. He hasn't really spoken too much on that the last 2 weeks, but I can't imagine he's pleased where that is right now for something that's been a big talking point for him over the last 3 years. There's just so much that has to go right and so much that has to change for NIU to be able to slow down even the running attack of, like Wyoming, which obviously isn't to the level what they're going to see this week. Or Georgia Tech did have a couple skilled backs, so we'll see where they end up at the end of the year. But, obviously Michigan in theory is going to be at a whole other level. So, I mean, you're absolutely right.
I mean, they went for 343 last week against Washington. I think 330-something, 320-something the first week against Western Michigan. And it's clear that that's what they want to try to do. So, I would expect it to be kind of a long day for the Northern Illinois run defense. And last but not least, well, Chris, do you have anything before we get to kind of the last question here for Eddie?
No, the only thing I'm going to say is, as you're talking through this, I know that that's a weak spot for NIU, but I hope Michigan doesn't take full advantage of it and just run the ball all afternoon. It'd be too easy to fall into that trap. We know that they're going to be able to do whatever they want to do on the ground. Put the damn ball in the air. That's all.
Yeah, Eddie, I don't know how closely you followed what Michigan fans or the media has been kind of talking about, but Cade McNamara, Michigan's starting quarterback, played the whole game last week, and he threw the ball. He went 7 for 15 for 44 yards. And so it's like, they beat Washington by 21, but everybody's kind of wondering what exactly can Michigan do through the air and how good is Cade McNamara at quarterback. And Chris and I have talked about, this is a good week and next week against Rutgers to kind of figure that out. You mentioned a little bit about their pass defense. And I think it's a long shot but if Michigan decides to air it out a little bit, what kind of resistance do you think they might see from the Huskies?
Honestly, I think it's best for Michigan if they probably do run it. If there is the secondary is capable of forcing some turnovers. They're also capable of giving up some big plays. That's why Michigan's probably better off just if the run defense is going to give up big plays and they can exploit that. I know that's not what you want to hear. You want more more Neil Armstrong and less General Patton.
There you go. He's been paying attention over there. I hear you.
So I did watch the presser.
Yeah.
So
that's Harbaugh for you right there.
Yeah. So I know you guys want more Neil Armstrong, but it is probably best to just patent it out.
There you go.
All right, that's probably the key to the success, the easier way anyway.
We'll get you out of here on this then. You've kind of done a little bit of the offense, some of the defense, both through the air, on the ground. A general overview of how you see the game going and a prediction, if you got one, for the score.
Yeah, it's probably all Michigan, I would think. I think NIU will score. I think they're capable of that. They find the way. I don't think they'll give up necessarily either. I know that's such a broad thing to say and can mean literally anything, but I think they'll be in it for longer than anyone expects. I think probably some slip up will happen that'll turn a 2-score game into a 3-score game, and that'll probably be the end of it. Whether that's a big play on the defense or a turnover going the other way. There'll be something like that in the third or something. Probably end up, I don't know, something in the neighborhood. And optimistic as an A fan, maybe 49-24, 49-28, something in that neighborhood. If you really want the homer pick, go 49-28 Michigan.
There you go. I think Michigan is sitting as a 27.5 point favorite. That's a lot of points. That is a lot of points. I don't care who the two teams are. That's a lot of points. But Michigan they won by 33 against Western Michigan. They won by 21 against Washington. Let me ask you this: Is Northern Illinois? Where's Northern Illinois in comparison to Western in the MAC? Are they supposed to be similar teams? Is Western the better team in that conference right now? Like, how do they stack up?
It's hard to tell, obviously, this season. I think they're both. I'm trying to remember the preseason poll. I'm so out of MAC mode right now. It's been so long. When was the MAC Media Days? Like 6 months ago or something?
Yeah, it feels like it.
So I can't remember. I think Western might be on paper or according to the media, or however you want to put it, might be slightly ahead of where NIU is supposed to be. So obviously the 79-point win or whatever that was, and bodes well for Michigan. But it's after watching this team watching this NIU team for 2 weeks. They're finding ways to be in games. They're finding ways to make things interesting. They found a way to win against Georgia Tech. It's really weird to say about a game they were losing by 26 in the third quarter, but they really should have beat Wyoming, and they didn't. So it's definitely a different team. It's not an 0-6 team, and they've got some potential. Going into the Big House and beating Michigan, probably not. But I don't see it being 21.5.
There you have it. Great stuff from Eddie. You can check him out at the Daily Chronicle. Thank you for the time, Eddie. Thank you for the breakdown of the team. Are you coming to Ann Arbor? Are you going to be in town this weekend?
I will be there. And have to put up with it if they do end up losing by more than 27.5.
There you go. We're going to let Eddie get out of here. Thanks so much for the time, man. And if we see each other on Saturday, we'll make sure to say hi and catch a little bit of the game together.
Hey, sounds good.
All right. Yeah, Eddie dealing with a little bit of what we were dealing with on Monday, a little bit of technical difficulties.
How are we still having connection issues in 2021? I hear all this about 5G and signal so strong it's supposed to give me brain tumors, and yet we can't even get a strong signal.
I know. We had Nakai Hill Green on. He's sitting on Michigan.
It looked like he was calling in from Mars.
Yeah, dial-up from my house back in 2004. Man, I don't know, but we were still able to glean some pretty good stuff from Eddie there. I mean, he was cutting up a little bit and breaking up a little bit, but from the sounds of it, he said, "Do you want to? I'll give you the homer pick," and he still picks the 3-touchdown win for Michigan. I think it's going to be a little worse than that. Like I said, it's a running the ball is a massive strength for Michigan at this point and a big weakness for NIU at this point. That has disaster written all over it, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's just going to be too damn tempting. I hope I just don't want to see him hammer the ball all afternoon. They can do it. Like, they know they can do it. NIU knows they can do it. Everybody knows Michigan can run the ball on NIU. Doing it, reeling off 400, 500 yards on the ground isn't going to prove anything going into the meat of the schedule. And so I just kind of go back to, I'm going to keep harping on it, man. I think they've got to put, even if it's 3 or 4 drives, give Cade and this wide receiver group the same amount of time and energy and effort that we're given to the running back room, right? Let them get their sea legs, let them develop a rhythm so that by the time they get to Madison in 17 days, they've got some of that going, man. They know who they can hit down the field. Cade's got a little bit of confidence. They need that.
I hear you. I agree. I think this is the time you do it. You know, there's nothing like live game reps, even if it is against the team you're better than. You can try as hard as you want. You can't recreate that in practice. The game day situation is the game day situation for a reason, even if it is against an inferior opponent. So I'm with you. I think you go out there, you try some things, you try to figure out what you've got in your receivers and in your quarterback and in your line. I mean, think about that too. The linemen haven't even had to pass that, but like 20 times in 2 games.
Right. Yeah.
Just a lot of things to try to iron out and work out before you have to take on the Badgers in Madison. So we'll see how that plays out. We're going to get out of here. We're going to combine this segment that we just did, the burning questions, the talking about Michigan, having Eddie on. We're going to combine all of that with what we did with Blake Corum on Monday, put this into what's going to end up being our longest podcast episode in history so far. And we'll have that out there for the morning for those of you who might not have been able to catch everything on Monday and tonight. So thanks to everybody out there for listening. Apologize for the technical difficulties on Monday. A little bit there with Eddie, but good stuff from him still. And we will be back on Friday. Take care, everyone.